Power flush, chemical flush, mains flush, Magnacleanse flush. Let's have a look. My name's Alan Hart, and today I'm going to talk about different types of flushing. So Jamie Evans asked about mains flushing, so I thought I'd just put a video together of the different types of flushing. Now what I'd say is this video is my opinion, and it's what I do. So please read the appropriate British standards, etc, etc. That's my disclaimer out of the way, and always make sure you're competent as well. That's another bit of a disclaimer. So yeah, let's have a look at some flushing. First of all, I'm going to show you a clip to some power flushing, and then we'll have a little chat about that. I'll talk about Magnacleanse, I'll talk about chemical flushes, I'll talk about mains flushes, and if you could, please add some comments below, and that'd be really helpful. It helps the video as well. Thank you. A power flush or power flushing. So power flushing is normally the best type of flush that you can do. It's not always needed. You don't always need to do a full power flush. It really does depend on the system. Obviously, if the water looks like this, then you know that it's going to need a full system power flush. The most important thing that you're trying to do is you're trying to make the system clean. Now I know that might sound obvious, but a power flush is not the be all and end all. The important thing is, no matter what you do, no matter which flush you do, that the system is clean afterwards. I have done a detailed video on how to do a power flush, and I'll just show you a picture of it there. And if you want to search for that after this video, and then you can watch that video as well. But what we're trying to do with a power flush is, obviously we're trying to get the muck out of the system, but what we're doing is we're connecting a machine on, and we're connecting it onto the flow and onto the return of the heating system, and then we're going to put chemicals around the system. So what we'd do, we would put chemicals in, or what I do, I normally put, I would open all the radiators on the system, I'd put the chemicals in, whatever that might be, X800 or F5 or MC3 or whatever chemicals that you're using, and then leave that to run around the system for at least, at very least 1 hour. Ideally, if you could put it in a few days before and let the customer run the heating, then that would be even better. And then what you're going to do then is, once you've run it around the system for at least an hour, maybe a couple of hours if you can, and then what you want to do is you want to turn all the radiators off apart from maybe 2 radiators, and then see which ones in the house are the least performing, or the ones that are not working very well, and turn all the rest of the radiators in the house off. Now what you can do as well is you could drain the system fully, so you've got all the water out of the system first, and then when you've put your chemicals in, you've left air in the top of the radiator, and then as it's trying to flush, the chemicals will only go round, or they will try and go round the bottom of the radiator, so they try and go through the sludge in the system, and that's what you want it to do. So as I said, then what you're doing is you're leaving one radiator fully open, and then often I leave a second one open just in case there's a bit of restriction and you don't want one of hoses to blow off, because that can make a right mess if that happens. So then it's just a time thing then. So you need to go around the radiators one at a time, open a radiator, turn one off, open one, turn one off, always making sure there's one fully open all the time so that there's no restriction in the system. And you can also, with your power flush machine, you can turn the flow the other way around. So it's got a lever on the power flush machine, so you can change the direction of flow. So as I say, if you click up here, or if you have a look and search for that video there, it'll give you a bit more of a detailed power flush. And if you've got any questions, please ask them below. And now what we'll do, we'll have a look at the Magnacleanse and what the difference is with a Magnacleanse. A Magnacleanse is a magnetic filter that you connect into the heating system, and then you put your chemicals into the system, and that runs round, and as you can see there, the black sludge goes into the filter, and then out of the pipe comes a clear water. But this is only any good for catching magnetite, so it's only going to catch sludge. So you can see on here, when we take this out now, that it's caught the sludge in the system, but that's not really any good to get the rest of the muck out of the system. So if you've got any bits of, I don't know, sawdust or whatever else you've got in, any other contaminants in the system, a Magnacleanse isn't really going to do that. Also with a Magnacleanse you can get a tool where you go around and you vibrate the radiators so that you get the muck or more of the sludge out. In my opinion, the Magnacleanse, it's good, but you need to use the boiler's pump usually, unless you rig some sort of pump up. But normally you would use the boiler's pump, and you cannot reverse the flow of it. So in my opinion, it's not as good as a power flush. But a power flush is a lot more labour intensive, hence that's going to cost you a lot more money. So it's a balance, but always on every single job, a power flush or a Magnacleanse, I would always say that you should have a mains flush as well. So I would always do a mains flush at the end of my installs as well. What we'll do now, we'll talk about a chemical flush. So, and then after that, I'll show you a mains flush, and I'll show you how to do a mains flush. So if you just wanted to flush your radiators out, then you can do this as well. So I'll show you that shortly. A chemical flush is, as it says, chemicals. So you put chemicals into the system to clean the system out, and you can use any cleaner really. Personally, I would always use the more expensive ones. I believe that the better than the cheaper ones, but that's just my preference. And all you're going to do is, if you've got your cleaner, what the instructions say on the cleaner is you'd put it in for a minimum of 1 hour, let it circulate around all the system, and then you would flush it out as good as you can get it out. So again, we'd be doing a mains flush to flush that, or I would personally be doing a mains flush. It also says that if it's a really bad system, you can leave it in for up to a week. But again, you always want to flush these out. So somebody's just put in one of the comments about putting X900 in, and I don't actually know what X900 is, but I would imagine it's something like a filter fluid where they put it in, and what it does is it's supposed to clean the system. You put a filter on and the filter collects the muck. Now in my opinion, and this is only my opinion, and obviously people that sell that product are not going to agree with me, but in my opinion that's a little bit of a bodge. And what you're doing there is you've got all your muck, sludge, flux, bits of rubbish, whatever in system, and that filter fluid, all that's going to do is it's going to collect any of the magnetite onto the magnet, but you're still going to have all that mixture of rubbish all going around the system, whatever chemicals it might be. That's my opinion, and if I'm wrong, you know, please add a comment below. But in my opinion, flush it out, get as much of the muck and stuff out of the system as you can, and then just put your inhibitor in afterwards, and you're not going to go far wrong with that. what I'll do now, I'll show you how to do a mains flush. Mains flush, in my opinion, is the best flush of all, and it's, you need to do that on every single job, no matter what you do, whether it be a chemical flush or a Magnacleanse or a power flush. I would always do a mains flush at the end anyway. So what I'll do now is I'll show you a mains flush. So what is a mains flush? So a mains flush, what you're doing is you're putting water, fresh water, into the system, and often you can do that via the filling loop on the boiler. So you're putting cold, fresh water into the system. It will go round the heating system, and then you need somewhere to get that water out. You also need an isolation valve on one side so that you're not just putting cold water in and then the cold water coming straight back out of your drain off. What you'll notice on some of my installs, there'll be a T on the floor, and there might be a pipe, or there could be a drain off depending on how I've done it on the day. And if that's the case, what I've done there, I would have isolated the flow pipe on the boiler, and then I would have opened the filling loop, and I'd have let cold water go all the way around the heating system and then back out of this pipe here that I've connected on. Often what I do, or what I used to do quite a lot with the TF1, is the TF1 filter is really good for flushing, because you can isolate one side, the side nearest to the boiler. You can open your filling loop, and you're only letting cold water, cold clean water, go into the central heating system. So it'll go in the boiler, round the boiler, out of the flow, go all the way around the heating system. It'll come back round the heating system on the return, and then you can have a hose pipe on your filter. On a TF1 you can have a hose pipe on the filter, and then that way what you can do, you can just flush that until you've got all your muck out. And then what I would say to do then is, or what I would do, or what I always definitely do, is you've then got all cold water back in the system, and then turn this off, open your valve here on your filter, and then let it all get warm again and let it all flush again. And the more you can do that, the better really. You want to get as much of that muck and sludge out of the system, and mixture of different chemicals, all that stuff you need to get out of the system. And then also what you can do as well is open all the bleed points. So open a drain off, and then open all the bleed points on the radiators, and try and get as much water out of the system as you can. What you need to do is the chemicals, any of the chemicals that you've put in, you want to get as much of them chemicals out. And then obviously once you've finished then, and you've finally finished and you've tested it all, you then I can't speak, then you can add the inhibitor, and whatever inhibitor that you use. So that's sort of my take on flushing a heating system. Mainly what you're trying to do is get as much of the muck out of the system as you can, and I'd be happy to use any of these chemicals. MC3, I think there's an MC5, I'm not sure. X800, I've used X800 quite a lot over the years. I've always liked X800. People do say they have issues with X800, but personally I've never encountered any issues with it ever. But I do flush it all out as much as I can afterwards. And also F3, Fernox F3. Fernox do F5 as well, which I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that F5 is only 2 bottles of F3. So you might as well just have F3 in your van and just use 2 of them if you're doing a power flush. Maybe Fernox won't like me saying that, but anyway. Yeah, so that's my take on it all. Flush it out as, just flush it as much as you can. Mains flush is brilliant as your last sort of flush. I hope you found this video of some use. Please add some comments below, and I'd be very grateful if you could smash that like button down there. Yeah, thank you.